It was the summer of 2012 when James first felt that something in his life was about to change. He was at a crossroads, a moment in time that he could never quite explain. A young entrepreneur with big dreams, James had been struggling to make ends meet for the past few years. His small business was barely afloat, and he found himself questioning everything he had worked for. There were moments when he thought about giving up, when the weight of the world seemed too heavy to bear. But deep down, he knew he wasn't alone. In the quiet of the early morning hours, James often reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He remembered the late nights, the countless hours spent perfecting his business plan, and the hope that one day, his hard work would pay off. But as the months passed, it seemed as if success was always just out of reach. The world around him felt indifferent, as if the universe was conspiring to keep him from reaching his dreams. He had no idea that the turning point was just around the corner. One evening, after yet another day filled with frustration and doubts, James sat in his office, staring at his computer screen. He was contemplating the future of his business, wondering if he should just throw in the towel. But then, something unusual happened. As he reached for his coffee cup, he noticed a small, folded piece of paper on his desk, something he was sure hadn't been there earlier. Curious, he unfolded it, and inside, he found a message: "Don't give up. Your breakthrough is closer than you think." The note was unsigned, and there was no return address. It seemed so simple, yet in that moment, it struck him with a force he couldn't explain. Who had left this message? Why at this precise moment, when he was on the verge of losing hope? For the first time in a long time, James felt a glimmer of hope. He didn't know it yet, but this small, mysterious note would set him on a path that would change his life forever. James sat at his desk, staring at the small piece of paper in his hand. The ink was faint, but the words were crystal clear. "Don't give up. Your breakthrough is closer than you think." He turned the note over, half expecting to find something more, an address, a name, or even a clue to who had left it. But there was nothing, just that simple message, lingering in his mind. It was as if the universe had spoken directly to him in that moment, whispering a truth he wasn't ready to hear but desperately needed to. He took a deep breath, trying to make sense of what had just happened. It was ridiculous, wasn't it? A random note appearing on his desk at the exact moment when he was at his lowest. How was that even possible? He had always been a rational person, believing in hard work, dedication, and logic. But today, logic seemed to fail him. Could this be some sort of sign? A coincidence? Or was it something more? James shook his head, trying to brush off the feeling of unease that had crept into his chest. He had spent the last few years building his business from the ground up, only to watch it teeter on the edge of collapse. He was exhausted, emotionally, physically, and financially. The market was tough, competitors were fierce, and despite all of his efforts, it felt like he was always a step behind. And yet, this note, this small piece of paper, seemed to suggest that something bigger was at play. He stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the city skyline. The evening light bathed the buildings in a soft golden glow. But inside, his thoughts were darker. What did the note mean? Who had left it? Could this be the intervention he had been hoping for? The more James thought about it, the more he realized that he had been holding on to something, hope. Perhaps, without even realizing it. Despite all the setbacks, the long nights, and the failures, there was still a part of him that refused to let go. The thought of giving up on everything he had worked for was unbearable. Yet here he was, on the verge of doing just that. But now, that note was calling him to stay the course. Was this the sign he had been waiting for? Was he about to receive some kind of divine intervention? Or was he just clutching at straws? As he pondered, his phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it and saw a text message from his business partner. "Sarah, James, we need to talk. There's a new opportunity on the table. I think it could be what we've been waiting for." The message caught him off guard. Opportunity? At this point, James had become jaded by promises of opportunities that never panned out. But this time, something about Sarah's tone intrigued him. It was different. For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of excitement. He quickly replied, "What's going on? Tell me everything." The response came within seconds. "I can't explain it all here, but I think we have a shot at securing a major investor. If we act fast, this could change everything." James sat back down, his heart racing. A major investor? It was the kind of opportunity he had dreamed about, but also the kind that always seemed out of reach. His mind raced with possibilities, but he couldn't help but think about the note. "Your breakthrough is closer than you think." Was this it? He leaned forward and typed his response. "Let's meet. I'll be there in an hour." The next hour felt like an eternity. James tried to push aside the swirling thoughts in his head, focusing instead on the meeting ahead. He grabbed his jacket, straightened his tie, and walked out the door, determined to seize whatever opportunity was about to unfold. James arrived at the cafe where he had agreed to meet Sarah. He had been to this place many times before, but today, the atmosphere felt different. The air was thick with anticipation, as if something monumental was about to happen. He spotted Sarah sitting at a table in the corner, her laptop open and a stack of papers in front of her. As he walked over, she looked up and smiled, though there was a certain urgency in her expression. "James, I'm so glad you made it," Sarah said, her voice tinged with excitement. "I wasn't sure if you'd actually show up, given everything that's been going on." James sat down across from her, trying to mask his own nervousness. "What's this all about? Who's the investor?" Sarah leaned forward, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "I know you're skeptical, but I believe this is the real deal. The investor's name is Richard Lawson. He's a billionaire who's been looking for new opportunities in our industry. And he's heard about us." James raised an eyebrow. "He's heard about us? How? Our business isn't exactly well known." "I know, but Lawson has been following the market trends, and he believes our product has huge potential. We just need to prove we can scale it, and that's where you come in." James felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. This was happening so fast. Too fast. It was almost surreal. But Sarah's excitement was contagious. "What do we need to do?" Sarah pushed a few papers toward him. "We need to present a solid business plan and show Lawson that we can execute. He wants to see that we can take this thing to the next level." James stared at the papers, the weight of the moment sinking in. This was it, the breakthrough he had been waiting for. And yet, there was still that nagging feeling in the back of his mind. The note, was this the opportunity it was referring to? As they talked, James couldn't help but feel like he was being guided by an unseen force. Something bigger than himself. Every word, every action, seemed to align in a way that felt almost orchestrated. Could this be the divine intervention he had been hoping for? Was this the hand of destiny at play? He looked at Sarah, who was now explaining the details of the pitch they would make to Lawson. Her voice was filled with confidence, but James knew that it was up to them to make this work. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of purpose. James walked out of the cafe, his mind racing with a blend of excitement and skepticism. The next few days would determine the future of his business, and perhaps his life. Richard Lawson, the billionaire investor, was a name James had heard of, but only in passing. Lawson was a shadow in the business world, a man whose decisions could make or break entire industries. To think that he had taken an interest in their small, struggling business was nothing short of miraculous. The thought lingered in James's mind as he prepared for the pitch. He pored over the business plan Sarah had put together, scrutinizing every detail, making sure it was perfect. The stakes were higher than ever. If they could win over Lawson, their lives would change overnight. But if they failed, well, James didn't want to think about the alternative. For the next few days, James worked tirelessly. He made adjustments to the business model, fine-tuned projections, and even reworked the presentation. Every time he thought he had everything under control, doubt crept in. Was he truly ready for this? Was he enough? And then, there were the whispers, the subtle feeling that something was guiding him. He couldn't shake the memory of the note he had found on his desk. "Your breakthrough is closer than you think." It echoed in his mind constantly, like a mantra that he couldn't escape. Was this the breakthrough? Was this what he had been waiting for? The night before the meeting with Lawson, James couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was making the right choice. Was this his moment, or was he setting himself up for failure? The next morning, Sarah called. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice upbeat, but there was a hint of nervousness that couldn't be hidden. "I'm ready," James replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Let's do this." They arrived at the meeting location, a sleek, modern office building in the heart of the city. The lobby was pristine, with marble floors that reflected the light from the glass walls. James's palms were sweaty as they were escorted into a private meeting room at the top floor. The view was stunning, overlooking the city in all its sprawling, chaotic glory. But to James, it felt distant. He was focused on the man sitting across the table from them, Richard Lawson. Lawson was everything James had expected, a towering figure in the business world. Exuding confidence and authority, he wore a tailored suit that fit perfectly, and his eyes were sharp, calculating. James couldn't help but feel small in comparison. This was a man who didn't make mistakes. If he took a chance on their business, it would be nothing short of a miracle. "Good to meet you, James," Lawson said as he extended his hand. His grip was firm, and his gaze never wavered. "I've been following your work for some time now. I must say, I'm intrigued." James shook his hand, trying to steady his nerves. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson. We're honored by the opportunity." Sarah took the lead, walking them through the pitch. She spoke with confidence, outlining the potential of their product, the market demand, and the financial projections. She was brilliant, and James couldn't help but feel proud of her. But as the presentation went on, he noticed Lawson's expression didn't change. He didn't seem impressed, nor did he seem disinterested. He was just watching. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Lawson leaned forward in his chair. "Interesting," he said, his voice calm and deliberate. "But I want to know something. What makes you think you can scale this business? What makes you different from all the others who have tried and failed?" The question hit James like a punch to the gut. He had been waiting for this moment, but now that it had arrived, he wasn't sure how to answer. He looked at Sarah, who gave him a nod of encouragement. This was his chance to speak up, to make an impression. Taking a deep breath, James began. "I believe our product has something that others don't. It's not just about the market demand or the financial projections. It's about the people behind the product. We are driven by a vision that is larger than just making money. We want to make an impact. We want to change lives." His words came out more confidently than he had expected. It felt as if something had taken over him, something beyond his control. It was as though the words were coming from a deeper place, one that he had never tapped into before. Lawson sat back in his chair, his fingers steepled together. He studied James for a moment, then glanced at Sarah. "You're a man of conviction," he said. "I like that. But conviction alone won't be enough to make this work. You'll need to prove that you can execute." The conversation continued, But James felt the weight of Lawson's words. He realized that this meeting wasn't just about numbers, it was about trust. Lawson wasn't just investing in a product, he was investing in them, in their ability to deliver. And suddenly, James felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a business opportunity. It was a test of their vision, their determination, and their ability to believe in themselves even when it seemed impossible. As the meeting wrapped up, Lawson leaned forward one final time. "I'll give you a chance," he said, his voice low and steady. "But know this, if I'm going to invest, I need to see results. No excuses." James nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He had done it. They had done it. This was the breakthrough he had been waiting for. James couldn't sleep that night. The words Lawson had spoken echoed in his mind over and over again. "If I'm going to invest, I need to see results. No excuses." It was a challenge, a test of everything he had worked for, and everything he believed in. This was no longer just a business opportunity. It was his chance to prove to himself, and to the world, that he could make his dreams a reality. For the next few days, James and Sarah threw themselves into the work with renewed focus. The pressure was immense. They had been given an incredible opportunity. But now, they had to deliver. Every decision was critical. Every action had to be executed with precision. There could be no room for error. James worked late into the nights, reviewing the business model, talking to potential partners, and fine-tuning the product. He couldn't afford to make mistakes, not now. Not when everything was on the line. The weight of the investment, the trust that Lawson had placed in them, was a constant reminder of how far they had come, and how much further they still had to go. One afternoon, as James was reviewing the latest financial projections, Sarah called. Her voice was filled with excitement. "James, you won't believe this. We've just secured a partnership with one of the biggest suppliers in the industry." This is huge. James felt a rush of adrenaline. This was the kind of news he had been waiting for. With this partnership in place, they could scale their business like never before. It was the first piece of the puzzle falling into place, and it felt like the universe itself was pushing him forward. As the weeks passed, the momentum continued to build. Lawson's investment had given them the financial backing they needed, but it was their hard work, their determination, and their unwavering belief in the product that was truly driving the business forward. The company began to grow faster than James had ever imagined. Their product was gaining traction in the market, and people were starting to take notice. But despite the successes, James never forgot the note. "Your breakthrough is closer than you think." It had been his guiding light during the darkest days, and it continued to push him forward. He realized that the breakthrough wasn't just about the money or the business. It was about his own personal growth. It was about overcoming self-doubt, pushing through fear, and learning to trust in the process. Then, one morning, as James sat in his office reviewing the latest sales numbers, his phone rang. It was Sarah. "James, I've got some incredible news," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. "Richard Lawson wants to meet with us again. He's impressed with what we've done so far, and he wants to discuss the next steps. He thinks we're ready for the next phase." James's heart skipped a beat. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He had proved himself. He had delivered on the promises he had made. Now, Lawson wanted to take their partnership to the next level. The meeting was set for the following week. James spent the next few days preparing, going over every detail of their progress, analyzing the data, and making sure they were ready for whatever Lawson might throw at them. This was their chance to secure their place in the business world for good. They had come so far, but this was the final hurdle. When the day of the meeting arrived, James and Sarah walked into the same conference room where they had first met Lawson. The atmosphere was different this time. It was no longer filled with the tension of uncertainty. This time, they were confident. They knew they had something valuable to offer, and they were ready to prove it. Lawson greeted them with a smile as they sat down at the table. "James, Sarah, it's good to see you both again. I've been keeping an eye on your progress, and I have to say, I'm impressed." James couldn't help but smile. This was it, the breakthrough he had been waiting for. Lawson wasn't just impressed with the business, they were impressed with them. The people behind the business, the vision, the heart. "I think it's clear that you've both done exactly what I hoped you would," Lawson continued. "And now, I believe we're ready to take the next step. I'd like to offer you a much larger investment. And in addition to that, I want to introduce you to some new partners who can help you expand internationally." This is the kind of growth I'm talking about. James's mind raced as he absorbed Lawson's words. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. They were on the cusp of something incredible. The business was no longer just a small startup, it was becoming a global force. A company that could change industries and touch lives all over the world. "I don't know what to say," James finally managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "This is beyond anything I ever imagined." Lawson leaned forward, his eyes focused. "It's not just the money, James, it's the belief. You and Sarah have shown me that you're capable of achieving something great. And now, I'm ready to help you do it." In that moment, James realized that the note he had found so many months ago hadn't just been a coincidence. It had been a message from the universe, a reminder that sometimes, the most important breakthroughs come not from hard work alone, but from having the courage to believe, to trust that everything would fall into place, even when the path seemed uncertain. As the meeting concluded, James walked out of the room feeling like a different person. He had faced his doubts, his fears, and had come out the other side stronger than ever. He had learned that success wasn't just about achieving goals, it was about the journey. It was about the people you met along the way, the lessons you learned, and the way you rose to the challenges that life threw at you. James's story was just beginning, and as he looked out at the world beyond the conference room window, he knew one thing for sure: the breakthrough had truly come. And it had come in the most unexpected, divine way.